Hey YouTube, I'm back. I apologize for the terrible lighting, but I needed the camera to be plugged in and I wanted to use this backdrop of all of these books that I own and will probably never ever get around to reading. But they look good, don't they? Look at that shelf. Look at those hardcovers. Anyway, so I wanted to talk about this trend in movie making, which is instead of writing new good original movies, we take old movies that were good and then we just plug women into the main roles and then we phone in the rest of the movie because, well, we did the diversity and that should be good enough. And it's not good enough. It really isn't. Remember Ghostbusters? That was a crap fest, but we'll talk about that later. So I was reminded of this last week because Steven Spielberg said a really stupid thing. Shocking, I know. But he was doing a press interview or something for this new movie, Ready Player One, which, I don't know, could be good. I saw the trailer. It looked like a big old Steven Spielberg movie. But anyway, so he said that they are making Indiana Jones 5, so God bless them. Hopefully Harrison Ford doesn't crash a plane and die before they finish. But after, if they wanted to make more, obviously he couldn't do it anymore because the man is like 1,000. And he thinks that Indiana Jones should be a woman now, which is dumb, but we'll get into the dumbness of that in a second. The really dumb thing he said was that he would have to change the name to Indiana Joan, which doesn't make any sense because Jones is a last name, and last names don't have genders. So it could stay Jones. Conceivably, you could change the first name, because, you know, Indiana's real name is Henry, and that's definitely a man's name, but Indiana's not a particularly gendered name because it's a fucking state, and he stole it from his dog. And you could have a girl called Indiana Jones. It sounds like a plucky middle school crime novel or something. I don't know. But I'm thinking of Cam Jansen. Did anyone else read those books? Those are great books. But besides the fact that changing the name would be incredibly stupid and totally unnecessary, what doesn't work about that is that Indiana Jones is a very male character. We can't just swap men and women out for each other. We're different. So, and Indiana Jones is very, very male. One of his things is he has a different woman in every movie, except for the fourth one. We brought Karen Allen back because she's amazing. But in the original three, we had Marion first, and then we had Kate Capshaw's character, whose name escapes me, and then we had that hot Austrian woman whose name also escapes me. Ilsa? One of those. Anyway, and a big part of his character was how he interacted with those women. A huge part of Raiders is he, you know, needs to save her because that's a very male thing. It's needing to save the lady. It's similar in Temple of Doom, but a lot of the comedy in Temple of Doom is Kate Capshaw's character being very, very female. Willie, that's her name. Being very, very female in this horrible camping situation, and him being a traditional women type of guy. And it's really funny because she's screaming at everything and he's just sick of it and they're playing poker. It's great. That's like one of the best scenes in any movie ever is when he and Short Round are playing poker and she's just running around screaming because snakes or whatever. It's fantastic. But that scene wouldn't happen if, you know, Indy was a girl, because he would, like, go and, or she rather, would go and calm her down and be like, hey, everything's okay, and then we wouldn't have the funny aces up the sleeve thing. It would be a different movie is what I'm trying to say. It would be a different movie. And then part of the plot of Last Crusade is that he gets tricked by a woman because she's really hot. Really hot. And he falls for everything that she throws at him. He falls for all of her tricks because he's distracted by the fact that she's hot. It wouldn't happen if it was a girl. And so it would be a different, it's not the same character if it's a woman. It doesn't work. And my problem with this is we need to stop being lazy with female characters. We need to write new, better female characters. There's also been a lot of clamor for James Bond to be a woman in his next iteration, which also doesn't work. Rachel Weisz, who is the current Mrs. James Bond, in fact, she doesn't think this is a good idea. that character, she says, the way James Bond interacts with women is it's a huge part of what makes James Bond James Bond, is that he sleeps with a new chick in every film. It's great. It's why we love him, except for, you know, the one with Denise Richards. Apparently that was shit. I don't know. I only saw like 3 of these. I'm not really into James Bond, but I see her point. And then she made the further point of, you know, women need their own stories. Women deserve their own stories. Women are just as interesting as men. But we're different, so we can't just be plugged into the same plots and expect that it's gonna be good. Just because Idris Elba says that it's time, that doesn't mean we have to do it. I mean, why doesn't he play James Bond? He's black, that's diverse enough, he'd be good at it. But no, he says it's time for it to be a woman, and so should be a woman now. I mean, I don't think they're gonna do that, because I think they know that they can't write a good James Bond movie about a woman, because it would be a different movie. But, I mean, there are iconic female characters that must be female. Like, Tomb Raider. That's a franchise we have. I mean, granted, Lara Croft started off as some blocky video game tits, but, you know, she's Alicia Vikander now, and she's real cool. Did you see Ex Machina? She's great in that. So, yeah, we need our own movies. Because every time we just try to redo it with women, it doesn't work. Remember Ghostbusters? It was crap. It was so bad. Because did you see it? It was dumb. I mean, it could have just been that the writing and the directing were terrible, but, you know, Bridesmaids wasn't terrible, and it was a lot of the same creative team. And The Heat was okay, and that was a lot of the same creative team. It's that the Ghostbusters genre is about a bunch of dudes who decide to start a dumb business. Like, women wouldn't start a ghost hunting business. It's not really a thing. Like, we're smarter than that. The funniest part of that movie was Chris Hemsworth being a dumb blonde. Because they actually took a trope that was traditionally female, and they put a man in that role. And they changed some things about it because he was a man, and it was really fucking funny. And also Chris Hemsworth is really hot, and I think they let him take his shirt off at least once, so that was great. That was really great. But that movie didn't work because we had 4 women trying to play 4 men's roles. We had the straight woman, played by Kristen Wiig, which, fine, whatever. And then we had 3 different versions of comic relief, none of which were particularly female. We had Melissa McCarthy doing her best funny fat chick impression, and I know she's better than that because we all saw Spy, and that movie did better than just, hey, look at the funny fat chick. And yet we didn't get any of that in Ghostbusters. And then we had Kate McKinnon, who was just weird. And I don't know, that could have been funny if she wasn't competing with 2 other comic reliefs, the 3rd one being Leslie Jones, who was a black lady. They didn't really give her a lot to work with there. She didn't mind. She was doing her best. I mean, I think parts of it were funny. I don't remember, because this movie was not very memorable. Unlike the first Ghostbusters, the original one, which is eminently quotable. I have no problem with women taking over the leads in movies. I would love that. That's awesome. I think representation is important, but it's not the end-all be-all. So if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it right. So, like, this new Ocean's 8 movie is, it could be good. I rewatched the trailer for it earlier today. There's not a lot of telling about how the ladies are gonna interact with each other, except for you get, sort of a best friends vibe from Sandra Bullock and Cate Blanchett's characters, which is cool. But they've picked a very feminine target, a sparkly diamond necklace. That's pretty cool. It's worth a shit ton of money, but also it sparkles. And the venue is the Met Gala, Met Ball, whatever, that thing at the Met Museum where everyone dresses up real fancy. And I think that's the whole party. I think it's just everyone dresses up fancy, and maybe they raise some money for something? I don't know. It's about dressing fancy. So, I mean, that's promising. But I don't think we're gonna get the Ocean's movie that I want, which is the John Mulaney version. He has this great bit where he says that Ocean's 11 wouldn't work with women because women and men behave very differently. I know, right? Because he says that 2 women would always be breaking off to talk shit about the other 9, or, you know, they'd just be subtly insulting each other while they crack safes. Because women and men behave differently. I hate to break it to you, but we are not interchangeable. If a guy was making this video, he might have similar points, but he'd definitely make them in different ways. He'd make different jokes. He might make jokes. I don't think I actually made any jokes this time around. But I'm tired. I'm tired of people thinking that female-driven movies aren't going to work because they haven't so far, because we haven't done it well yet. Except for a very few. Like, Wonder Woman was great because Wonder Woman has always been a woman. It's right in the name. It'd be weird if she was a dude. And the way she behaved in that movie was feminine. I mean, yeah, she's badass and has legs for days and could beat anybody up because she's, you know, like a god or something. So we can suspend our disbelief about whether or not women could physically beat up men or whatever. But, you know, she behaves when she's thrown into the real world, she behaves like a woman does. She gets distracted by babies and ice cream. That's like the most female thing I've ever heard. And it worked. We loved her. We loved her less in Justice League because she was less interesting, I think. Because, well, she's like jaded and sad now, but Justice League was disappointing for a lot of reasons, naming no Joss Whedons. But what you gonna do? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, Steven Spielberg, please don't make Indiana Jones a woman. If you wanna spin it off somehow and, you know, maybe he's got a long lost daughter he doesn't know about, because let's be honest, he had sex with at least 3 hot ladies, so he could have had a mystery daughter, you know, who's better than Shia LaBeouf. If you want to spin it off that way, sure, but don't expect us to come and fawn over it just because you gave us a female-led film. Like, make it good. Make her a woman. Make her act like a woman. Make her react like a woman. I am sick of watching these movies where women behave like men. We are not men. We don't behave like men. This is why no one went to see Atomic Blonde. Because it was just Charlize Theron smacking people in the face with a shoe, which I don't think would really work. I mean, maybe if you hit him right in the right spot with the pointy end, but I mean, it was just her punching people in the trailer. There was nothing interesting about that character. There's nothing about that made me want to be like, yeah, I want to see that. I want to see how a woman would behave in this situation. It was just, she went around punching people and James McAvoy was there, which even that wasn't enough to get me to watch that movie, because I watched Wanted because of James McAvoy, and that movie was also shit. So, if anyone out there makes movies, make good ones. Write good stories with women in it, and not in the Joss Whedon way, because if you really look at any of his female characters, none of them are that interesting. They're sort of variations on the manic pixie dream girl, but, you know, who also punch people. So, let's be better. Let's be different. Let's be women.